Hello there. Today we are diving the Pacific Northwest for Dungeness crab and some red rocks if we find them to be large enough to be worth the while. I won't be naming this area that I'm diving in today. It's a very popular one, and it'll be easy enough for you to find it on your own. I do feel that part of being a Spiro is doing your research on finding new areas, species, seasons, regulations. I'm just hoping to add to the pool of resources that you can access in order to do so, and throw in a little tidbits and tips on what I do to help be more efficient in bringing these crabs home to enjoy with friends and family. Aside from this place being very productive during the season, I really like taking some of my newer dive partners to dive this area frequently. The reason being, it's just a really good place to build foundations. Once you can do 25 to 30 feet, you can dive this area and be able to take crab home. But one of the things I really love about it is these pylons really assist new divers in learning the muscle memory and feeling of diving directly straight up and down, and the practice of it, I should say. And this will come in real handy for when you start diving in other areas where you have clear water down to the same depths to help prevent you from swimming down in a diagonal line. So you see here's one of my first shots of the day. I'm pulling the biggest crabs I can find at the bottom. Of course, that is the name of the game. But what I'm really doing here is trying to train my eyes to recognize what a legal sized male Dungeness crab is going to look like on the bottom. You have to remember that everything looks 30% larger on the bottom. We don't want to spend all of our dive time pulling small crabs, so it's really important to really size them up on the bottom. It's always going to be a mix of the amount of time the crabs have to come into the area. So usually it's not always hot that first hour that you get there. You need the crab to come into your chum. But once you do get them there, as you can see, they can really fill in. I like to hover above the crab and spot the first one I want. Then I'll sit there and I'm going to spot the next crab I want. And I'll move forward and grab that crab. Because as you can see, you'll scare the crabs into a cascade. You don't want to scare all the crabs on the bottom and spend your time chasing them around. So you'll notice here I see a bunch of crabs in the distance, and I have two already. I can go into that pile and get a third, but I'm going to scare all the crab out of that area as well. Instead, I decided to just take my two crabs to the surface, leave that section undisturbed for my partner to go down, and get their 2 to 3 crabs as well. I also want to point out the pillars in this area. On all the ascents here, you're going to notice there's two types of pillars. There's going to be a rectangular pillar and a hexagonal pillar. And the rectangular pillars have a cross beam that run between them under the surface of the water. So anytime I bring a new diver here, I always tell them, do not come up under the rectangular pillars or even near them at times, because if you're busy juggling crabs, I don't want you to lose your spatial awareness and hit your head on them. Do make it a habit of coming up next to or far away from the hexagonal pillars to make sure no accidents happen. Nobody wants to get knocked out on their way up. It's also a good habit to keep your hand above your head as you come to surface. It's a good habit even not in this location when you start diving reef shelves or anything. If you're coming out of a cave, it's a really good practice to have your hand above your head so it hits the ceiling before your head does. So I like to get to the area where I'll be neutrally buoyant when I first get to the bottom, and I can hover above the crabs without scaring them all away. And I'm looking for a legal sized crab. Sometimes they're pretty easy to spot because the bigger ones are smart enough to run when they realize you're in the area. You'll see here I start a small cascade of crabs, and then I stop where I'm at and look from a distance for my next crab. If I swim into these crabs at this depth, I will just scare all of them away. So I spot my second crab, swim over and grab it. And then this next part is a no-no. Recognize this is a bad habit and don't do this. If you have left bottom and are ascending and then decide to stop and swim back down to get something, whether it be a crab or fish, it's a good way to get yourself into trouble. And it happens a lot of times. So just recognize that the crab is there. Go to the surface and let your partner know, hey, directly below me, there's another good-sized crab. That way they can start their drop on top of something productive, and it'll help keep you safe as well. So I hit surface, and because I did something goofy, I make sure I get a good breathe up. Also, I don't know where she's at. She might be behind a pillar or something, but I always look in the direction of my dive partner. It's important to do so. Your dive partner needs to be looking you in the eyes and making sure that you are not in any type of trouble. If you're facing away from your dive partner, if you're facing away from me as my dive partner and you hit surface, I'm going to yell at you to look at me. And it's just a good habit to build up. So I'm going to be checking my crabs now that I have them on surface. I do have 3 of them. One's in my armpit, one's between my legs, and then I'll have one actively in my hands for checking. We're checking their hardness as well as their size. Here in the Puget Sound, they're required to be 6 1/4. There's a little freebie on location finding for you. And hardness, when you press underneath their pincer, you'll see the areas that I'm checking them at. If it flexes at all, it's soft, and you need to release it. It's not worth your while to be taking soft crabs home. Anyways, they have less meat in them. They're soft because they just recently molted. Another thing about diving this location, you'll see here on video, I'm bobbing up and down a little bit. To you, it looks a little bit, but there's some chop going on. And in order to conserve energy in a situation like this, it's good to be up against the pillar. I have one hand on the pillar, steadying myself as I breathe up and keep calm. If I'm kicking to stay into place, it's not really helping you to lower your heart rate before a drop. So here we are again, making a drop, following the pillar down. Again, good habit. You notice I don't turn my head up to look until I can see any amount of sand in my perpendicular vision, at which I want to find the spot where I'm neutral. If you're too low, you sink straight into the crabs and you'll get them to start running. If you're too high, it's going to be a lot harder for you to go down to the bottom once you spot the crab you want. And this just plays into being efficient with your energy and oxygen. So after hovering, I've spotted the crabs that I want. You're going to see here the crab closest to the center of the screen is a lot darker than the large crab at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. That darker crab is guaranteed to be hard. You can tell by the growth on it, the color of it, that it has molted quite some time ago, whereas the one that was in the right hand corner of the screen looked a lot cleaner. So the one in the right hand corner of the screen is going to be questionable. This one is solid. As long as it is the right size, it is coming home for sure. So here I am, spotted my crab, landing on it. I'm gonna have to work on my angles so you can see me actually grabbing the crab in the future. You see, I tend to stop them from running, and then I grab them. I've already spotted crab number 2, pointing him out for you guys. Looking around for crab number 3. He's not in the immediate area, so I grab 2, look around again for 3, nothing, come on up. I did this drop just to get a little more footage of crabs on the bottom. This is probably a good time to point out the difference between how to spot a male and female crab. So your female crabs, if you can spot it, they're going to look rounder than your males. So kind of one of the focal crabs, the center of the screen a lot, and you'll see me grab at the end. She's very round. There's no doubt in my mind she's a female. And then center screen now, that's actually a male crab. If you can notice, it's a bit pointier towards the tips. And then sometimes if you can see the backside of the crab, you'll see the hinge. The hinge on top of the females are very obvious. You can see them top or just a slight angle. And then of course we got a little starry flounder there. Proof of purchase, we got a female right there. And it's good to work on your eye for spotting males and females. It'll save you a lot of time. Spearfishing in general is all about efficiency. You will be limited on the amount of drops you're able to make on a day, whether it be how far out you had to swim, temperatures of the water, how deep you're diving, how hard you're working against the current. So you want to be as efficient as possible if you want to be able to take home enough of whatever resource it is you're gathering at the time. At this point in time in the video, you can see there is a lot of crab available to choose from. We're about over an hour into the dive now, and as I said before, it takes some time for the crab to come in. It does help if you bring out chum. If you do bring out chum, I recommend you bring out something that an individual crab will not be able to pick up and run away with. The idea is you want something big enough for them to come and have to sit on, and it helps congregate more crabs to the area when they know that other crabs are getting food there. This footage is from a separate day after I recognized that I had no good angle at picking crabs up for you guys. So as you can see here is a simple way. Pin the crab so it doesn't run and cause all the other crabs to run, and then get my fingers behind it. And that's about it. I apologize, it's definitely not the best video footage, editing, and audio, but ultimately I just hope to add to the resource pool for anyone who's starting off spearfishing here in Washington, or even someone who already has experience spearfishing but is coming to visit Washington and wouldn't mind picking some crabs up. A lot of the spearfishing here in Washington is not difficult at all, but it's a really good place to build up your foundations for spearfishing in other areas. I have been spearfishing for 18 years now, and diving even longer than that. So with these videos, I also hope to put in tidbits of information that will help you get ahead in regards to your skill level, so that when you go to some place that is a little more challenging, you have these things to fall back on. A lot of times we'll be traveling to do that, and so you have a limited amount of time in this area to learn. So if you can build up these good habits here in Washington and keep them in mind, it'll pay off in the future when you decide to travel elsewhere. That's a wrap. Dive safe, everyone.